Well, we'll get started. The Oregon School Boards Association OSBA Executive Committee meeting on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024 is called to order at 12:32. A roll call is taken. All exec committee members are in attendance with the exception of Don, who is supposed to come, or who will join us shortly. With that, next item on the agenda is welcoming everybody. Want to welcome staff and attendees of this meeting. Heads up that the agenda includes some discussion items that will include um, executive session meetings. So if we end up in executive session, I'll read a script, then we will go into a waiting room, go into a room, and then come back into a meeting in public. So hang tight with us as we go into that process. The first thing, the president entertains a motion of approval of the agenda.
Mr. President,
Madam President-elect.
I move the approval of the agenda as presented.
Yes, I second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, on the approval of the agenda as presented, is there any objection? Passes. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action related to executive director hiring process. So I'll start off by saying, as you are aware, with the termination of the contract or the separation contract signed with Mr. Jim Green, currently the position is formally vacant, and we do have an acting executive director contract in place, who's continues to perform the duties of the executive director. About a year ago, the process of succession planning, hiring an acting director, interim executive director, and a permanent or a full-time executive director process was initiated through a request from the former executive director to this committee to start the process. And the president-elect and myself last year were part of a subcommittee that's provided recommendations to this committee, which in turn provided recommendations to the full body of the board for a process to follow to do all of these three different stages: hiring an acting if an acting is not in place, and then hiring an interim if that's the decision to be made, and then hiring a permanent one, which is the duty of this board. So as a committee, we will be supporting the board making those decisions, and there is a process in place. With that, I want to lean in on Haley and Bob to ask if it is prudent for us to move into an executive session first before we go into further discussion, so the board is informed of some legal counsel related to this process.
I'll just say a few words in open session before we move into an executive session, and then if Bob has anything else he wants to mention. I just wanted to let you all know that we do have a board meeting scheduled, special meeting in July 11th at 10 a.m. to talk about with the full board, the executive director permanent hiring process. As we were kind of preparing for this executive committee meeting and the board meeting coming up on June and having this discussion with the full board, we noticed that there is a requirement in the interim hiring process that the executive committee meet within 60 days of the resignation of the executive director and have a conversation about whether to appoint an interim. And so that is why this discussion is coming to you now. I reached out to Bob Steringer, our outside legal counsel, last week to get him involved in this process, because as you can see from reading these different processes, they involve outside legal counsel. So that is why Bob is here and going to help us through this process. I will be the staff member at OSBA that will help with this process as well, but we will be relying on Bob as well to kind of guide us through this process. So with that, Bob, is there anything else you want to say before we go into executive session?
No, I think that's a great summary.
Thank you, Haley and Bob. And for folks who are listening to this conversation, just to share in transparency, the processes that we are discussing are there in the packets, meeting packets. And the first step, as Haley mentioned, is the president contacts legal counsel and asks to provide guidance regarding the recruitment and hiring process. So we are now going to receive information regarding that, and want to thank Haley and Bob that they already initiate to the process around providing guidance even before I reached out on Friday. So thank you for doing that, being ready with that. And with that in place, I believe I don't have the script unless Linnell, you sent it to me, but I think I can read the script. And Bob, you can say if I missed anything else. How do you feel about that?
Sam, I'm sorry, for some reason, I'm unable to raise my hand. Could I just add a couple things in open session, public session?
Please do.
I just that I'll just remind us that the full board approved these succession planning documents, guidelines in the January meeting as part of the consent agenda. And I'll just say that you and I worked on those with the support and assistance of Mary Paulson. She was tremendously helpful. And as you stated, we did that at the direction of former executive director and our president, Sonia, at the time.
That's right. Thank you. Is there any other discussion members of the executive committee would like to share? See none. Bob, I have the ORSs involved in front of me. I can read them, or do you have a script that's you're comfortable with that you would like to read? What do you prefer?
Sammy, I just resent the script to you.
Oh, thank you. And I apologize. I missed that. Wonderful. The executive committee will now enter executive session to consider attorney-client privilege information or records that are otherwise exempt by law from public inspection regarding legal advice. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192, section 660, subsection 2, subsection F, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Or also ORS 192, 355, section 9, and ORS 40225. The executive committee and OSBA staff members, Emily Nishik, Haley Purcell, and Linnell Trissell, will now be moved into a breakout room for the duration of the executive session. Members of the media are permitted to attend. However, media are not permitted to disclose information discussed in the executive session. All other staff and members of the public will remain in the meeting room. No decisions will be made in the executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session, and the session participants will again join the meeting room or will be able to be with us in the meeting room. The meeting recording can be paused at this time. So members of the public, hang tight in this area, and folks, I mentioned their names or positions. We will be joining a breakout room shortly.
Hey, Dave, are you gonna stay on? Hey, Efren, let's leave and go to Teams. I have someone texting me when they're done with the exec
Sorry.
session.
Couldn't unmute quick enough.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just gonna hang out. I'll see.
Okay.
I don't know what else is on the agenda besides what they're doing.
I haven't even looked, so I don't know.
I don't know, so I'll have to look at that. So no worries.
Oh, Linnell's back.
She kicked herself out.
So, Sonia, are you there?
I don't see, Sonia left.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else in here.
Okay. Hold on, admit.
Oh,
Her picture's still on my screen, so I'm like,
oh. Dave, just text me when they come back.
Yeah.
See, I'll call you in Teams, Efren.
Okay.
Sonia? Sonia, have you been able to join?
I don't see her.
They're on here. I just see Lori and you. Now Lori's gone. I just see you and I on. Just so you know.
I've got Sonia twice on my screen now.
Double good.
Right? Except for she's just not here. Okay. Admit.
Is there more to the agenda after they get back?
Emily's gonna go over her goals.
Okay, I'll wait. Then I'm gonna hang out. So thank you.
Is that you, Sonia? Are you there? Okay, Sonia, I don't know how your audio is going, but I'm gonna try and put you over into the break room, or the breakout room.
I still don't see her on my screen, but that's all right.
Well, yeah, it looks like she's gone again.
Sorry, is she having it on her side?
Yeah.
Right, as we wait for everybody to be back in, please stick around for a second, and I need to pull the script one more time. Executive session. Are we all back in?
I don't see Sonia.
Oh, and she hung up.
I think she's still having a hard time, but she's trying to get in right now.
She's coming.
Awesome.
She's here.
Right, we'll wait a minute for everybody else to be able to join us. And I think we're ready for recording. Oh, we're already recording. Executive session is now adjourned. We will return to open session. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. And as we were waiting for everybody to return to the meeting room, we're back into the main subject before we enter to the executive session, which is executive director hiring process. I would like to open it for the committee members for any discussion or motions. Chris.
Mr. President, I would like to move that the executive committee recommend to the board at our meeting in June, on Saturday, to officially hire or make an offer to Emily, I'm not sure the wording, Nishik, to be our interim executive director. She hasn't actually said for sure she'd do it, but I'm hoping she would. I think she will. So
I believe Emily, with the discussions that I had with her, she would accept. And Emily, since you're in the meeting here, is that something that you're willing to accept?
It is, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there a second? Emily
I'll
Smith?
second. If you guys can hear me, I'll second.
It's been seconded. Emily Smith, was that an intention for a second? Sorry. By the way, second does not require recognition, so feel free to jump in on a second. So for the sake of documentation, I did type the motion as stated by Chris into the chat. I'll read it out loud as well, and then I'll read it again just for the record and for Linnell's. It was moved that the executive committee recommend to the board on the meeting on June 15th to officially make an offer to Emily Nishik to be our interim executive director. Is that the right statement of the motion, Chris?
yes, you said it as I stated it, and my grammar was incorrect. So maybe we can change that. I guess I would also ask to amend my motion to include at reflecting her current contract, or and perhaps Bob or Haley can help me with the language there, but with no actual changes, just a continuation at this point of what her current contract is as acting. I think if I could amend my motion to that effect, that's what I would like to do.
So before I take your motion, is there a specific language council would like to recommend for Chris to make without objection to regarding to the contractual aspect?
I think what's being proposed is that the recommendation is that the board offer to employ Emily Nishik as the interim executive director on the same terms that are found in her existing employment contract.
Thank you, Bob.
I hope I got that right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
So, yeah, Chris, I did type what Bob said. Feel free to seek unanimous consent to amend your motion according to that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I moved that the executive committee recommend to the board at the June 15th meeting to employ Emily Nishik for the position of interim director on the same terms as found in her existing employment contract.
Is there a second for the amendment?
A second.
All right, without objection. So the amendment passes without objection. So the main motion now is the statement that Chris have mentioned. Is there any discussion on the motion? No discussion? So there's no discussion, I will just provide a support for the motion and share gratitude for this committee and for Emily being willing to support the work of the organization, provide stability and support the organization's goals. I believe this motion will help us accomplish that. And with that, is there any objection to the motion? Seeing there's no objection, passes unanimously. All right. Is there any further discussion on the executive director hiring process?
Oh, could I just add, part of my intention and is that I think that at this juncture, I also think it makes a statement of appreciation and support for Emily and the work that she has already done, the significant work that she's already done on behalf of the board. And I see no reason to hesitate at all in offering her that position. And then we are still giving the opportunity for our board to have a discussion about how to move forward. But it makes a very strong statement, I believe, of our executive committee support for the work that Emily has been doing and for her continued work.
Thank you, Chris. Point taken. Any further comments? Any further discussion on the process? Haley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have a question. So I was looking at the board packet for the Saturday meeting, and it does not currently have an action. So we're going to have to update that agenda item to have an action for this. Also, I'm wondering, do you want us to set up an executive session for the board on this topic as well?
I believe so. If the committee agrees, straw poll, do you agree that we should provide for the the board, the full board, an executive session to examine the counsel we have received as well, in addition to the action?
I just anticipate that maybe other board members will have similar questions.
So
All
we
right.
will add those, and since this is an amendment to the general meeting agenda, I believe it is prudent to say without objection, we will add both agenda items that you stated. Is there any objection to that? So the executive committee will add to the board's agenda next meeting, both agenda items that council stated, an executive session and a discussion and decision on the hiring process, right? Considering the recommendations without objection, passes. All right. And just for the record, we will go to the board with this recommendation. And immediately after that recommendation, we'll provide we'll meet again as an executive committee to provide support for the board for next steps as well for the full hiring process. But the first step now is to formalize the hiring of the interim before we move into the full process of the full-time executive board. Or not full-time, permanent executive director. Any objections to that sentiment? See none, thank you all. Next item on the agenda is acting executive director's 2024-25 goals. And Emily, take it away.
Thank you, Sammy. I'll go through this really fast because we're down on time. Sorry, this did not, the attachment didn't make it into the packet, but Linnell did send it out. And I went through and put in some new goals for 24-25 as part of the new evaluation process that will be happening, that the board will be taking up at the June meeting as well for the acting executive director position, so that I have goals in place to be evaluated. And so I can really quickly just go through these with you. And as a reminder, they are in your email. And I did work with Salam Noor on these because he had done the work with the board and we had some time set aside at the last board meeting to have a full discussion with the board that we didn't get to. So he and I kind of just went off of all of the work that we have done with him and seen that this is an alignment. So these are the goals that I'm proposing for 24-25 OSBA financial operating plan. So lead the implementation of the 5-year business plan to generate new revenue, increase operating efficiency, and provides financial stability to the organization. And this is all tied to the Coraggio work that we've been doing over the last year and the next phase of that plan, which is more on the implementation side of the work. And it really crosses all of the departments and functions within the organization and ties to the board's goal of wanting to release the reliance on our endowment. The second, and stop me if you have any questions at all. The second goal here is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So operationalize the internal and external diversity, equity, and inclusion work in our systems and practices to build an inclusive workplace where everyone feels respected, valued, and connected to the mission. This is a continuation of the, I would say, consciousness of raising work that we have been doing and all of the internal staff training in contracting with the Center for Equity and Inclusion over the last 2 years and our equity teamwork. And so we're really at a phase with the hiring of Stefan Kibbs as our Director of People Operations to take that work from learning to the next phase and really starting to create systems and practices that help us create that inclusive work environment within our employee engagement experience. And then I would say the next step on that is really the external piece of it and how we take this work out to our membership and in our training series with our board members. Goal number 3 is school funding advocacy. So lead and support the legislative team in supporting our members and build broad coalitions with other educational stakeholders around the state to advocate for funding or for fully funding the state schools fund in Oregon. And this is really for the 24, we've talked a lot about it already, but for the 25-26 session, that is going to be our laser focus for the year is state schools funds. And I'm really working on increasing the amount of money within that fund and that it is flexible for our districts and also balancing the accountability conversations that we've been having. So that one is pretty specific and focused on the actual state schools fund and increasing the amount there for our districts. Number 4 is transparent leadership, build a culture of transparency and accountability for OSBA staff and the board. That's something that I've heard both from board members in communication and just ensuring that we are really putting systems and practices in place that allow for transparency and accountability of each other, accountability to staff and within my role. And then lastly, board leadership, continue the foundational work of reviewing the policy manual, updating the bylaws, and creating a clear system and practices that allowed the board to do their best work. So all that work that we've kind of started this year with re-engaging the committees and really looking at where there was gaps and holes and how do we streamline all of that so that we are able as staff to be able to support you all and ultimately our members in doing the work and having really clear guidance by having clear foundational documents to be able to support us. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments. This will go to the board in the packet as well in June.
Thank you, Emily. I see celebration emojis. I don't believe it is our practice or necessity that we approve vote to approve those goals, correct?
I could not find anything in that in practice for that. Yeah, but it will go to the board.
Awesome, thanks. Chris?
Sorry, it's so weird that I can't use my Zoom hand signal, but I just want to express appreciation, Emily, again, for those goals and for they're just right on, and they're have a broad scope. It represents a lot of work ahead, but I appreciate each and every goal that you have set, and I would be excited and eager to work with you alongside the rest of the board and staff to work on each of those. So thank you. That's really excellent work.
Thank you, Chris.
Any other comments, questions? Chris, Emily, I have a question, unless someone want to go first. I have a question. Which one, and maybe the writing is in the title there. I don't assume 5 is the one, but which one of the 5 could be the ones where, or which ones in the within the 5 could be the ones where you need more board involvement or engagement, or even ambassadorship to the members to tell them about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think certainly we will be needing the board on number 3, the school funding and advocacy. And I've been working with Lori and Efren and our new legislative specialist, Adrian, on how we engage our board, our LPC members and the membership, and really taking advantage of the awareness that has come to light, I think, across the state in the position that our school districts are in, and being able to really harness that energy and broad level of support. And so that's definitely an area where I see the board being able to support those efforts, and especially their work on the LPC. I think with the transparent leadership, that's something that I really see that this committee is working hard to do, and is also the board and the executive committee are the model for the organization. And so how do I partner with you all in making sure that I'm sharing the appropriate information up, and that we are able to also ensure that the staff are on the same page and coming along in the process too. So I definitely see that an area where the board can help support in that, and that is going to require a close partnership. Does that answer your question, Sammy?
Partnership or an ambassadorship?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Both, yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Any other comments? See none, just want to say this is laser focused. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Emily. Any final thoughts?
Just appreciate all your support and your recommendation also for moving me forward for the interim, and looking forward to continuing the work. And a huge appreciation to Haley, who has absolutely done this 100% right alongside me. So lots of appreciation for you, Haley.
And I just want Linnell to note for the record that neither Emily nor Haley bolted from the room. So they're all in, I'm assuming.
Awesome. On that note, anything for the good of the order? Seeing none, sincere apologies for being 6 minutes over time. We are, without objection, we are adjourned. Have a good rest of your afternoon and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.